Well, welcome to is it Wednesday night, guys? My God.
I think it's Wednesday.
I never know
Hump Day.
What night it is. Happy Hump Day. I'm JD Green. You got yourself aired out. Thanks for tuning in tonight, subscribing, and being a part of our broadcast. Don't forget that you can drop your comments right here on this page. We'd love to hear what you have to say, and especially if you loved the show, the subject matter, we'd love to hear from you, get some feedback from you. Like, comment, share, all that good stuff. Tell your friends about us, and thank you again for subscribing if you've done so. We have tonight in the studio two amazing guys. I'm telling you what, right now, first of all, the show's going to stick with you. If you know anyone who has been up against the odds, has had a rough life, drugs, alcohol, what have you, it needs a little bit of inspiration, this is the show that you're going to want to share that link to. Or better yet, call them and tell them to tune in right now. We're live. I have Robbie Jennings with me and John Marcotte from Green Oak Boxing Club. Guys, thank you so much for coming in here.
Thank you, JD.
Thanks for having us.
It's an absolute pleasure. We've been talking about this for a couple of months now.
Yes, sir.
And I'm so glad that it finally came together and that you're both here. Let's start with Robbie. Where the hell's the accent from?
Originally from Scotland.
Listen to that. Yeah. Does he get babes after him with that accent, John?
My wife, who is also from Scotland, would most completely crush me without hesitation, I can assure you. We were babies together. We've known each other our entire lives, and yes, she would crush me.
Yeah.
Crush him.
Now, seriously, does she box?
No, I don't want to train her any further. I'm just saying that we come from a steel town in Scotland, and yeah.
The Scots are a little...
Yeah, cuckoo.
Little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
They can get that
oh, yeah.
look in the eye.
Oh, yes.
You have no idea.
I know I don't have any idea. I mean, Sherilyn's from England. She tells me, look out for the Scots, man. They're a bunch of crazies. So what, and John, we're going to be talking a whole lot about you tonight, buddy. You're the main focus of tonight's show.
Yep.
But I just got to know, what in the hell brought you to Vermont?
My uncle Don was probably my best friend. He built a ski area in Northfield, and he was a member at 10th Mountain, the 10th Mountain Division. And he had come to Norwich University in the 50s, and he trained them for mountain cold weather, and set up for the state of Vermont the mountain cold weather rescue team. And when we had come over, we were originally in New York, and we were encouraged to come to Vermont. So somewhere between my 9th and 10th birthday, we came to Vermont. And it was an interesting change of culture, as you would expect. But I couldn't think of a better place to grow up. And I say that with the utmost confidence. And I'm in my adulthood, which when you're a younger person, you're like, oh, I've got to get out of Vermont. I've got to go do. As an older person now, having returned to Vermont, I even as an older person, I couldn't think of a better place to be.
Wow.
Yep.
Now, how did you meet your wife? She's from Scotland too. So you went over to Scotland. You met her.
We were babies together. We come from the same neighborhood, and our mothers are exceptionally good friends. In Scotland, we run a kind of extended family sort of thing. Of course, the idea of the clan, it comes from Scotland. The idea of the original family, and then anybody connected with the family. And so with us, there are these wonderful pictures of us as babies sitting on our mother's knee, and so I can't really surprise her particularly often, as you would expect, because she probably knows what I'm up to. So, yeah.
So you said, please come to New England, and
Jane, when we ended up marrying a few years ago, we had been out of touch for a couple of decades, and so we got back in touch, and Jane came over, and when we were looking at making a permanent move, I had said to Jane, well, you can come here in winter. You understand you've got to bundle up. I said, you can come here in summer. I said, it's both those seasons. You understand the rules. Or you can come in mud season, which is Vermont at its worst. And she came and she looked around, JD, and she was like, I love it here. And I was kind of like, okay, okay.
Did you live on a back dirt road?
No, but I certainly afforded her the pleasure of some of those dirt roads, and said, do understand, this is one day it's snowing, the next day it's 60-something degrees. I said, you can't predict it. You can't. You've just got to deal with it.
And she loves it.
She loves it. She's the biggest fan.
And she has been here for how long now?
Jane has been here coming on 4 years.
4 years?
Yeah. Yeah.
What a story.
What a trooper.
Yeah.
what a trooper she is. Yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah, and she puts up with me and the shenanigans of the boys and the girls that train with me. And
so let's talk about the gym. It's in Northfield.
It's in Northfield.
It's called Green Oak Boxing Club. This is something that you started.
Yeah, something I started, and
because you were boxing.
I did a lot of fighting when I was younger. I taught boxing and kickboxing at Norwich. I had a gym in Northfield at that time as well. I had no intention of general purpose starting another gym. And at my wife's prompting, at Jane's prompting, she said, look, just do it. I had Johnny chewing my ear off about training. It's interesting because now I'm training second generation from families. The children of the kids that I started training.
That's awesome.
It is. I celebrate it. I celebrate it.
So when did you start the club?
Green Oak, we've had coming on a year.
Wow.
Yeah, it's funny because I just had, it was another a guy returned to me. He's 40, Aaron's 43, 44. I trained him when he was 14, 15. And so we were chatting one day in the club just after he'd rejoined us, and I said, this is just so wonderful. You know, we're X number of years later. And he goes, I said, how long has it been? He goes, Robbie, I think it's about 30 years. And I kind of went, all right, next subject.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. Crazy.
So introduce John Marcotte next to you. How did you meet him, and how did he get to be a student of yours in your club?
So John Marcotte and myself, also some of the other members in the club, were electricians, and we worked for Benoit Electric. And we, a couple of years ago, interestingly enough, standing at a urinal.
I love it. I always love the stories where we begin with standing at a urinal.
That's not usually
Sure.
It's interesting. So we're standing there, and so John just does this like 90-degree turn on his head, and he goes, I want you to train me. And I went, okay. And of course, we know as men, generally you're not having conversations standing at urinals.
Yes.
We try and stare straight ahead. And so I'm like, yep. And
think about baseball.
And yes, exactly. It's not just, yeah, in one circumstance, right, JD? So anyway, so John kept on and on about it. And so as I said, Jane prompted me. She said, look, just do it. You're out training every day yourself. I hadn't been training people in a number of years. I was training out in the freezing cold in my gym, and people would go, that's like Rocky stuff. It's like, at the time I didn't have any heat, and I'm out training below zero. And, you know, I think now accept the fact I'm getting older, but up until recently, I wasn't prepared to accept that fact. But John kept on, and so then I said to John, I am going to open the gym. I'll take you on, and we can start training. I said, but do understand. I said, when we're at work, we're friends. When you're in the gym, we're not friends. I said, my job is primarily to protect you, is to keep you honest. And this is a serious undertaking. You can get hurt very easily, very quickly in a ring, and you're going to be prepared. And we focus not just on the physical, which is pretty extreme. It's very old school, the way we train, but it's mental. We don't raise our voices in the gym. It's all about control all the time. If somebody gets frustrated, part of our training is meditation. It's about control. It's about being in the moment. And so if I see somebody's distracted, I go over and I ask them to take a moment and relax. And sometimes they'll choose to meditate. Other times they'll just take a couple of deep breaths, refocus, and come back in.
Wow. The whole time I'm listening to you, I'm just imagining myself and what I would be like as your student.
You'd be fantastic.
No.
Yes, sir.
No. That's quite an undertaking, learning how to harness your emotions and keep everything in check.
It's the only thing that keeps you safe, JD. If you're out of control, and that's what your opponent wants. They want you to be out of control. They want you being emotional. When you go in, I say to John, look, when you're outside the ring, you're as meek as a lamb. When you're inside that ring, you're a lion. When you come back out, you're meek as a lamb again. Everything's about respect.
Wow.
So we're calm. We don't do intimidation. We don't do the tough guy. We have no ego in the gym. If you're, if any bullying, not tolerated whatsoever. If you talk down to someone else, we'll have a chat about it. I may ask you to leave for the night if you're
That's definitely
being
not
disrespectful.
tolerated.
No.
So how long has John been fighting with you?
John, it's coming on a year.
1 year.
Started out of the gate. And he has the promo items to prove it. Don't you, John?
So, John, the first thing I want to say to you is kudos to you, my man, for being brave enough to come in here and share your story. I think it takes a lot of guts to do that. That's kind of an understatement, but
Indeed.
So your story of how you got to a point where you needed to find a healthy outlet is pretty remarkable. And it basically comes down to you're either going to find an alternative to vent what was going on in your life, or fair to say, you probably were going to die.
There was no question about it, to be honest. I'm surprised I made it past 23.
How old are you now?
I am 28, and there was a period of time where I could promise you I wasn't going to. And in fact, I have, in retrospect, my heart has stopped multiple times, either an overdose or just drinking myself to oblivion.
So drugs and alcohol. Starting
back in high school, to be honest. I started drinking heavier in high school, but it's kind of like what led up to what mentally broke me down to start doing it, because I became emotionally attached to anything I tried very early on. I was always trying to mask something. I was always considered a bit of an idiot in school. I didn't try, but kind of it starts back to first grade because I had failed first grade. I was always just a wild individual. But in the early 90s, not many people really knew how to deal with kids with what they call ADHD. With kids today, I have ADD, I have ADHD.
Right.
Sounds a bit of like a dick, but in my opinion, no, you don't. You just haven't found an outlet that pushes you.
Right.
You haven't found an actual way to overcome it.
Yeah, I understand that.
I understand having it, but there's a lot of us out there that have a hard time paying attention, doing this. I couldn't do college, so I chose trades. I'm better off with my hands. I can see visually and make something happen versus sitting in a book all day.
Understand.
And being in a lecture. But yeah, no, it started in high school. I didn't try any hard stuff. It was only drinking and smoking a little weed. But I started drinking, I don't know, I want to say probably 8th grade. Freshman year. 8th grade into freshman year summer. So 2005.
Wow. And it got out of hand.
It took a turn after my junior and senior year. Mostly it really started my freshman year, because my freshman year, when I was going in, it was just mindless. Like, your parents have a cabinet full of liquor and you're like, oh, you get a little buzz with your friends, whatnot. You kind of screw around with it, but you're just being young and dumb. When I was a freshman, it was probably first month or two into freshman year. I had we went to a party with a bunch of our friends. We had it in the basement. It was like a truth or dare, like dumb stuff. No one was drinking or anything. It was just a little party, someone's birthday, and everyone left. One of our friends, we didn't really have cell phones. One of our friends just had a little flip phone, so they were able to get like quick text saying, "Hey, you three come back." We came back. We snuck into the house, went down. The girls, they were drunk. We were not. 3 of us, 3 of them. Long story short, we lost our virginities. And now I can laugh at it because it's not emotionally. I've already gone through the crap. But that year was the beginning of what was a mental battle that I still kind of deal with. After all said and done, we done our things. We lost our virginities. As boys were leaving, going like, oh, yeah, like we were pumped as young men. But one of my friends decided that he wanted to talk about it during school. Rumor got it, and Northfield's a very small town, so rumors get out very fast. You kind of have to learn to deal with that. And so rumors got around, and, you know, parents found out, school found out. Once the school found out, they got the cops involved. These girls were pressured, blah, blah, blah. The one that and just happened to be in my luck, that's just the way it was. If you don't have bad luck, you don't have good luck. Just happened to have been the one I was with, happened to say, I don't remember giving him consent. And from what I remember is that the cops were really kind of pressuring. Like, did he say yes? Did you say it? Like, did he ask? And it turned into a huge thing of, like, basically the rape word started coming out.
Yeah.
And I had stayed back in first grade, so I was called, like, you know, oh, you're a retard, you're dumb, for years. And it messed with me. But this sent me to, like, a whole different mindset. Because for the next 2 years, all you hear is, oh, there's rapey. Yeah. Oh, rapey. Rapey's here. And, you know, everyone makes jokes about it. But as the kid who's going through it, you're sitting there like, rape is a huge word.
These decisions created a web, it seems like, that you got tangled up in. Mm-hmm. And then your situation seemed to create its own momentum, which that incorporated alcohol, drug use, a lifestyle that it picks up its own momentum. It turns into its own monster. And the more time that goes by, the harder and harder and harder it is to to get out of this.
And the only thing I knew at the time was to just push it down.
Yeah.
I mean, what are you supposed to do? Just give up on life and this, that, and the third. And at a young age, I thought I did pretty well as far as getting through.
Sure.
Not that I wasn't capable of getting through it. It was just like when you're with the friends and you're with females, like in your mind, going through their minds, like, what are you going to go say to them?
Sure.
After that whole endeavor goes by, can you be the same? Are you ever going to be the same?
And this taxes greatly your parents, your friends. It takes a toll.
It gets even worse after that, unfortunately.
The older you get, the more things are happening, and so you became addicted to drugs and alcohol.
In a way, yeah. But I didn't know it.
Sure.
That's the worst part, is once you're kind of on that path, you don't really know it. Once it's there.
So what was the bottom of the barrel for you? Was it that night when your sister found you? Can you tell that?
That is absolute. That's where everything led up. Everything I did in high school blurred off of that. Getting out of high school, I didn't really know where it was going, what was going to go on. And at this point out of high school, I'm visiting my friends in college. And that's when you start dealing with like Molly, Coke, so on and so forth. Me, I was always an upper kind of person. Very upbeat person, but I liked uppers. Once I got out of high school.
You're talking about pills?
Yeah. I guess I started on my own medication. I had Adderall when I was a kid. It always feed me from 4th grade on. I started snorting those probably sophomore year in high school.
Okay.
And yeah, so I guess I was used to snorting something. I never tried anything else, but I always had my medicine.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't taking them regularly.
Yeah.
Which my parents thought I was, but I'd use them more for like the weekend.
Yeah.
And that's when it became like a party fun.
Of course.
So out of high school, after I get to that point of now I'm touching real drugs, I'm used to it. I know what to nostril on, so on and so forth.
Wow.
It just got to a point where I found myself on the top of Union Brook, which from my house, people in Northfield, people who travel that area, I was at the very top where the pavement meets the dirt, and I was on my knees apparently. And the last thing I remember is I just left the liquor store. Before I left, I had taken the bottle cap off and flicked that at the person that just sold me the bottle. And I started wailing it there. Took off walking from convenience. So it was probably about 3 or 4 miles I walked. And I mean, just obliterated. I was done with the world. I didn't give a shit. I just wanted it all just to be done.
So your sister found you.
The weird thing is that I think they were looking for me. I don't know if I had called her. She had been driving out that way trying to find me, and she just sees me on the road. I mean, I'm bawling, I'm crying, just out of all sorts. The bottle's gone. I just started hitting myself or something through the bottle. And after all said and done, that I woke up from that just kind of, because I had lived in Boston at the time. I'd come home because I just wound up in the hospital in Boston. And I blacked out, didn't remember what happened, wound up in the hospital, and but it all started the night that my sister found me there. I had went to rehab shortly after that.
And where was that?
Florida, North Miami, 169th Street.
So you're on the phone with a crisis worker.
So to get there, I'm talking to my mom. I was talking to my therapist at the time. He is the only person I knew who would help me with this. I was just finally ready to give in and get help because I didn't want help. for the longest time, I think I just didn't want it. And he had called me in. I'm sitting with him talking about this. Obviously, you know, I'm freaking out, scratching stuff. I didn't want to go, but he had said, I have one last chance to get you. Just hear this person out. And so I just, whatever, I'll give it a shot. And he calls this person, and the voice, I knew I heard him. I knew I had heard.
You recognized his voice.
I knew I recognized this voice. And it was a friend that I had grown up with. Most of my childhood, we were best friends. And I know he went off the tilter. He got into drugs. And I had never heard from him after that.
And you're on the line with him, and he's in Miami?
Mm-hmm. He was at the original G&G to the rehab that I went to. He was at the facility. So he took a personal call for me. And when
That's crazy.
Yeah. So at that point, I felt for the first time in my life, after 5 years of just using, I finally felt a glimmer of hope for myself, I guess.
Yeah.
That maybe I can reconcile this and turn this around. And he finally said his name, and that alone just, I got on a plane the very next day.
What's his name?
Eli Staub.
Eli Staub?
Staub.
Wow. Thank you, Eli. So you got a plane, and it was pretty much...
He said, all you got to do is show up.
Wow.
We'll buy the plane. We'll buy everything.
It was pretty much your mom that said...
Oh, my mom...
You're on the plane. Whether you want to or not,
Yeah.
you're going.
She definitely want to do a shout out and say thank you for being an outstanding mom, because I couldn't. I would not be here.
She saved your ass.
I would not be here if it wasn't for her.
Yes, sir.
There's no two questions about it. I would be dead if my mom was not there. To
Amen.
Everyone who's been
Amen.
there,
Mm-hmm.
to everybody who's been there
Yep.
throughout my life, who's helped me on right up to the new people in my life that continue to keep me on my toes. Because it's not a battle that just goes down. I mean, you know, it's not something that you just lose in your mental.
Of course. And sometimes just, getting a halfway decent job and whatnot, and having a few things that go well in your life, sometimes that's simply not enough, which I'm assuming you kind of figured out, and you said, I got to get with this dude.
Well, that's the thing is, like, when I got into rehab, I had found weightlifting, and as soon as I started feeling lifting weights, I took off.
Sure.
I mean, and before I came back, it was about 220 when I came back.
Yeah.
And I was really into it. And it just got to a point where I'd started getting stagnant, and my lifting just wasn't pushing me enough.
Yeah.
And I had started relapsing. And I had a few good backtracks that really set me back. And he started talking about it, and it kind of comes right down to, we were at a Christmas party. I had a few too many to have, but it got me talking.
Which, as a Scot, he can certainly understand.
Which is where the funny part
this
comes
guy's
in.
running around hammered with skirts on. Right?
I've staggered with the best and the worst, I
Please,
assure
you
you, JD.
understand.
So that's where it came down to, where I was just sitting in the urinal, I'm like,
Yeah.
you got to train me, bud.
Really?
And
Really?
But it was my heart saying it. It wasn't.
That's cool.
I don't even remember the next day. So that's where it was like,
That's
I asked you to do that?
Yeah.
And so the thing is, I really felt it, though.
Yeah.
I needed something new. I needed something
Right.
to drive me, because honestly, I could feel it. I was going right down the same path.
Isn't that something?
Death was right next door, and I was accepting of it, though. There's so many times when I get there, it's like I just get to the point where I'm accepting if I just don't care anymore.
Wow.
And
Wow.
through the whole point when we finally did it, April 27th of last year, was the first time I had felt alive again. for the first time, I felt like I had belonged to something.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many years I was searching for something to just be a part of. And whether he thought I was just joking about it or not, I was at such low. And it was hard to accept somebody else's help because I'm not one to just, I hate accepting help. I just do.
Yeah.
But I knew I couldn't do this by myself. You never can.
No.
And
That's
as
probably
far
the
as
biggest mistake that people make is they think they can swing it on their own.
and then they
Super
keep doing it. They keep trying to, oh, I'll change it here, I'll change it there, and I'm still learning.
Yeah.
I'm always still learning. I
Always
feel
will.
it's
Oh, you
when
always will.
someone says that they're a grown man, I feel that's false, because that just distinguishes that you have nothing more to learn.
Oh, yeah.
Being a man is understanding that you're willing to learn and to keep growing and to keep learning.
Yeah.
And when it finally happened, I don't know, I just wanted to push myself with him.
Sure.
And so that's kind of how I got into the fight scene, because just doing the exercises wasn't enough. I really wanted to, my mental issue was so, I still think it gets a little out of hand sometimes,
Sure.
but once I really started working with him, it was just like a voice that was always, of course it really was about this close most of the time. If I felt like I was going to fail, he would just kind of like,
With that crazy Scottish accent.
the eye. It's the eye that you don't understand. It's like when he looks at you.
Yeah. Well, he knows. I mean, he's
been through it.
been on this planet longer than you.
But the thing that drove me to really get with him, to push, to actually take the whole fight scene and to train as a fighter, is the fact that he sat there and he looked me dead in the eyes and said, eventually, your voices are just going to disappear.
Right.
And in my life, my uncle had schizophrenia. My mom went through all that, and that's the biggest thing is when she finds me like this, I went through my own schizophrenic stage.
Sure.
Through all the drugs and everything, I went through my own schizophrenia.
Yeah.
And to come back is hard, but to deal with it,
Of course.
because your voices and some people saying like my voices are my dad, this, that.
Yeah.
And it's like I'll go through the day.
Yeah.
You could probably stab that person.
Yeah.
Like the normal person sitting there like, what? And so every day that's what makes me feel absolutely nuts. And when I started, and as soon as he said that, I worked even harder, because that's all I wanted in life. That's all I still want in life. If it was between anything else, I want the voices just gone.
Yeah.
They'll never be gone. From my teaching with him is that they'll never be gone, but I can control them.
You can control. Yeah.
And through meditation, through working, through consistency, you might have an actual normal life to separate those voices, to be something. And I've been dealing with those voices through high school, all through my life. I mean, the last 20 years, and it's just for the first time in my life, I can wake up during the morning, go to work, and not feel like I'm just waiting to die.
Sure. You have purpose.
I feel like there's purpose for me, and it's just felt like 15 years of like I haven't had a purpose.
Sure.
Feels like.
Sure.
But it gives purpose to my everyday life.
Sure.
I like fighting because I like training with him. I love the whole atmosphere, but it's what it drove outside.
Of course.
Going through school, I never thought I'd do any of that again. And the training, I don't know, it's just giving me something to focus and to push that fear aside. Fear never leaves, but it's helped me sustain a life.
when you were preparing for this fight, the battle, the Jingle Bell Brawl up at the Barry Auditorium, put on through Donnybrook Fight Promotions, Rex Thompson, an amazing guy.
Yeah,
You get up
awesome,
there,
dude.
you know, it's you're in a cage. You've seen this before, plenty of times. You got a new fighter,
Yes.
who's you really haven't known this story about John
No.
up until now.
No.
You got a guy who's getting ready to walk into the Barry Auditorium. What were you saying to him in the weeks leading up to December, to that December fight? What were you saying to him leading up within the hour? And before you answer that question, I got to tell you, man, it takes huge balls to be going into your first fight into an environment like that with all of these fighters who have been fighting for a long time, under the lights, under the crowd. Huge balls. I mean, I can't even if I was a talented fighter myself, to walk into that environment knowing that I'm going to be in the cage with somebody, even as a skilled fighter, intimidating.
It is. It's the typical of the when you're at those events and you hear everybody screaming up and so forth, and it's the idea that, of course, it's quite often armchair generals. It's not taking away from fans. I don't mean it like that.
Sure.
But people shouting up, kill him and all this sort of
Right.
thing. And for
Right.
John, what we did was, as we do with anybody that's even going to spar, anybody that's going to do any fighting, is about, as I had mentioned, being in the moment, being calm, being relaxed. Your speed comes from being relaxed, from being calm, having that focus. Just a little side note, we were getting ready to go in, and I said, John, put your sweatshirt on. There's a reason that we wear hooded sweatshirts going in, because of that focus. We're not distracted by things around us. We're going in. We've got a serious bit of business to take care of in that ring. We need to have that calmness. We don't want to be distracted by things around us. And John goes, "No, I'm fine." I said, "John, put your sweatshirt on." John's like, "No, I'm warmed up. I'm feeling good. I'm fine." I said, "John, last time put the sweatshirt on." John chose to not put the sweatshirt on. And of course, you can imagine the nerves going in. I mean, for the first time you're walking in, you're walking through the fog of a smoke machine.
Sure.
Our faces
Music.
up on the screen, music's blaring.
Loud music.
Yes.
Huge crowd.
Yep. And everybody's, slapping you and
Of course.
want to shake your hand and
Right.
all this. And again, there's a reason we wear hoods.
Interesting.
going in. And, but John, I mean, hats off to him. The endurance, the training I put these guys through. I mean, John was hitting 5-6 days a week.
Sure.
And it's very extreme. But when John was talking about my voice whispering to him, that's what I do. I don't raise my voice to you. I'll come over and very quietly say to you, "You've got this," when I see you're struggling. When we're going through some of the extreme plyometric and the nature of the endurance training we do, which again is very old school at our gym, it's people start to fail.
Sure.
And so when you come up and you say calmly, "You've got this. You can see your way through this. You can push this." And suddenly it brings them back into the moment. They're not thinking about their quivering legs. They're not thinking about their sore shoulders.
Of course.
And it's that calmness,
Yeah.
you know.
Which I can't even fathom when there's so much adrenaline going on. How do you stay calm? But I'm going to bring Billy in here in a second, my producer, and he's going to talk with you. But one last thing, I want to tell you, John, that before that fight, I said to Robbie, this is his first fight, if he loses and he's back at the gym on Monday, you got yourself a winner.
Yes, sir.
Do you remember me saying that to you?
I do.
And I think you lasted 4.5 minutes, something like that, based on the video that I have.
The video. I think it was, so he was getting towards the end of that that first round.
Yes. And Billy can break it down better, much better than I can, because he was watching. You know, he knows more of the details of what happened. But I saw your face when you came out of the ring, your face, and it was not devastation. It was, I had my first fight.
Yes.
And you looked exhilarated.
That was the whole point of when I talk about the voices, is that was the end game of 10 months of training.
Sure.
There was a deadline to what I was trying to accomplish.
Yeah. But are you going to get back in the ring? Are you going to get back up at the Barry Auditorium and take another go at this?
Absolutely.
That's a yes?
Training starts in April.
And another one after that?
I don't see why not.
I'd love to. Good. I'd love to see you, man. Billy's jumping on here. Billy, take it away. Great stuff, guys.
Yeah, that was great. The one thing that I was listening to when you were talking, I actually got a little teary-eyed, because my real grandfather had the same exact problem. He never got help, never wanted help, and I wish that he would have done what you did. I wish that he would have spoken up, knew that he needed help, because he threw his family's life in the trash. He left my dad, left my gram, and I've seen my real grandfather probably 3 times in my whole life, and just because I knew what he did, I never cared for him. I didn't have any connection to him. He was just my dad's actual dad. And I have a great grandfather, a step grandfather, but man, that just made me it made me proud of you to hear you, because you're a young guy. You're like, what, 28, 29? 28. Man, I think you'll realize, I mean, I'm 22, so I'm not trying to preach to you, but I think that you're going to look back and think that this is going to be like one of the greatest decisions that you've ever made, because it's, especially with something like this, it's a life-changing decision.
It really wasn't much of a decision, because I had gotten to the point where my family was ready to step back. They were ready to step away. I couldn't have lost my sister. Couldn't have lost my mom or my dad. So that decision became very clear to me. But I did want the help. And that's one of the biggest things, is the people do really have to want it. Mm-hmm. I just was fortunate enough to hit my rock bottom. I can tell you, though, it's the climb out of rock bottom that sucks the most. Because once you've lost everything, trying to gain it back is the hardest thing you'll ever do.
And there's so many people that are dealing with stuff like that everywhere.
All the time.
Yeah. And I heard you talking before we started. You were down in, I think it was Miami, you said, or down in Florida with people that you were living with, and it's everywhere. It's not just in
my
one
God.
particular country or state or anything.
It's everywhere.
Like that. It's everywhere.
But people, I couldn't stay there just because people made it. It was like a living. They'd get out. They have a couple days of month or two of being clean, and they just want to go right back to it. And then they know because they could go right back to rehab.
Right.
I just didn't. I didn't want that life. I didn't want someone to get attached to somebody and have betrayal happen and watch that person go out, and I just didn't want that.
Yeah.
I didn't want part-time relationships or part-time friendships.
Yeah. Because when you're doing stuff like that, everything kind of is part-time because you never know when
Yep.
it could be.
Goes right out.
Yeah.
You never know when someone's going to go out.
Yeah, but when I was in there listening to you guys, I did get choked up because the first thing that I thought of was my actual grandfather and how he could have, like what he could have done.
Mm-hmm.
Because from the stories that I've heard, he's a strong, tough dude, wouldn't take any shit, but he was very bad at kind of what you were saying, what you changed. He didn't want any help. He didn't want anybody to give him like a handout. And I'm kind of the same way, but I've learned to, I'm only 22, but I've learned to kind of accept help when you need it because it doesn't matter if it could be anything, like living at a house. If you need help with like money or helping someone.
I'm in school and I need help with my homework and stuff.
Exactly.
I can't tell you how frustrated I get sometimes. And I'm not good at school. Never really was. I've worked very hard to be where I am right now as an electrician. And there's still a lot of work to be done. But it's the point of not stopping.
Yeah,
because there's never a break.
No.
Can't be static in life. And that's, you climbed out, John.
I felt like
testament to the type of person.
Yeah. Because that's probably the hardest thing that you're probably ever going to do. Fighting and doing anything. So, Rob, do you have any, like with your family or anything like that, do you have anybody that has suffered with like alcohol or drug problems?
I think anybody that says they don't have are in denial. Because one of the things we talk about at the gym quite often is, most importantly, we're all human beings. In the point of, fighting, it's fantastic. You're a young man. You're going in. You're having your fights. Training. It goes beyond that. We talk about being human beings, helping each other, being brothers, being sisters. And the fact of the matter, we look at our own family, we look at close family friends and people that have lost their life in the process of making choices, some of which they've regretted. Unfortunately, by that point, sometimes it's too late. And, so it's the idea that we do what we can, not just for people in our immediate circle, but we reach out beyond. That's the point. I point out to the guys quite often. They make jokes because normally in this sort of thing, everybody comes in with, black shirts and everything's about metal and everything's about. And we have quite often very light music going, etc. Unless it's Endurance Day, then that's Rage Against the Machine Day.
Oh,
but
I already liked it. I already liked that already.
But my point is I'll wear these white shirts and they'll make comments about it, and I always say to them, no, I always cheered for the good guy, there's something to be said for that, because I say to them that there's choices we have to make every single day, and make informed choices. Don't be impulsive. Take bad situations, acknowledge them, don't bury them, acknowledge them, deal with them. When you learn to smile at bad memories that come along, they become less powerful and less controlling in your life. When you can smile at them and you can get back on and not be derailed, not be sidetracked, and not take away from who you are, and what you should be doing as a family member. Now, having heard this from John, I had only heard aspects thereof. I had never actually heard the full story. And while I had such a great respect for him before and what he's undertaken, you know, genuinely hats off to, you know, now having heard the entire story, Billy. It's
Yeah.
quite overwhelming. So,
It's can be very overwhelming even to tell it, but at the same time, it's also very soul retrieving, I guess is what I want to say. Soul reviving, to say it.
Makes you feel better.
Because like in this world, when you go through that kind of thing, you choose the drugs. It's how, like he said, you can't let it predict who you are going to be in the future. You're going to have setbacks. You're only human.
Yep.
It's how you end up moving on and trying to change that moment that you may have failed. Doesn't matter how bad it happened, what happened. I mean, you know, as long as you're not murdering someone. But I have setbacks. And when I have setbacks, yeah, you lose people. You might just lose a number of people you didn't want to lose. It doesn't change what your direction's supposed to be. And if there was something I could tell, especially at the age of 22, that's when it all really started for me. There's just so many things that you can go off a story like this as far as mental. But the biggest thing is, like, you don't know what somebody's gone through. You don't know how deep pain goes. And with everybody, no matter what your story is, pain is the same thing as their pain. Pain is pain.
Pain is pain, yeah.
End of story. And so, like, you know, as it was, I guess I got a little choked up still to this day, and I've said the story 1,000 times.
Oh, really?
But I used to say it in Miami. If someone asked you to stand up in front of people, someone, like you were saying, you didn't want to give me a lecture at 22.
Yeah.
What we'd say, what we'd say is a guy with 5 days sober can help somebody with 4 days sober. Doesn't matter your age.
Right.
I might have more wisdom. Doesn't mean you can't teach me a thing or two.
Damn, I really didn't think about it like that. Because I have friends that are younger than me, like 20, 21. And whenever we're talking about not like stuff as serious as this, but if I try to give them advice through something, I'll always I don't want to sound like that old guy that's trying to say everything that I'm telling you.
But at the
is
same
right.
time, you can't be afraid to do that because someone might be listening.
I'm not. And then I will go into what I'm saying. But I always...
You may not get everybody to follow, but if you can get one person, you may have just saved somebody's life. You may have just turned that person around.
I'm probably going to stop doing that because I don't... I guess the reason why I do it is because I don't want them to look at me as like, oh yeah, this fucking guy thinks that he's got it all figured out. He thinks that he knows what I'm going through. And so I'm always like, I don't want to sound like that old guy that's, you know, giving you a lecture and telling you that this is what you need to do. And then I'll go into whatever I'm talking about. But exactly what you said.
I mean, the thing is, too, is like I do it too. But I do it in such a way that I always try to like involve a joke that maybe I've done. Like if I know somebody is on a drinking path and they're driving, they're using their motorcycle a lot, I'll sit there and say, I'll put a smile on it, but it doesn't take away from the reality is like, buddy, you're drinking way too much. You shouldn't be drinking and driving. Guess what I did? And I say a story that, not to prove I just had a story. It's like I'll tell them that I had a DUI. Went off and got a second one. Let me tell you, you don't want that in your life because when you have that, you're losing out. You're just burying yourself. And you can't be afraid to say it.
You don't want your buddies or someone that you know to have a bad experience or do something that you may have done.
But you also don't want it on your conscience saying
Right.
that they just went out and did
and you
something
saw
stupid,
it.
but you
could
could have said
see it.
something.
You could see it coming.
If
Yeah.
you'd said something and they try to come up to you and saying, well, I just did this. Well, I warned you. I warned you what the repercussions is, and now you have to go through it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's how that person reacts and goes through it is what determines their output, not
Mm-hmm.
yours.
Right.
Billy, you've got a keen sense of responsibility for the people around you, and that's called caring.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, sometimes people don't want to hear it. And the fact of the matter, you know, I think there's a difference between having a heartfelt conversation with somebody. And I've always dismissed when people go, well, people might not like it, but I'm brutally honest. Sometimes those people that are being brutally honest, they're, let's face it, they're jerks.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a question of being brutally honest. It's somebody you care about, or maybe it's a circumstance that maybe you don't know them, but you see that something's going on and you take the time. You're a caring person. You never apologize for that.
Never.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And I do have I know my buddy isn't listening, but I have a buddy, Christian, that when he comes over, we'll talk about stuff that's going on with his family and stuff like that. And me and him have kind of had similar, I'm not going to say similar upbringings, but our parents both split up when we were about 16 or 17.
Mm-hmm.
And I tried to...
Tough time.
It's a very tough time.
Yeah.
I almost would have rather have it happen when I was like 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Because like when you're at that age, like your family, you come home from school, mom's going to be home at 4, dad's going to be home at 5.
Yes.
It's, mom and dad are here. And then the day that gets taken away, it's like you don't believe it.
No.
For a while, and it's weird. You don't know how to take it or how to act. And whenever I talk to him, I obviously talk to him and try to make him feel a little bit better about the things that are going to happen. It's like what happened. You're not gonna get your parents back together. It's not a movie. No. You're not gonna be able to have a meetup in a restaurant and then they're going to get back together.
Yes,
so you have
absolutely.
to figure out what you can do as a person to move forward, deal with it, and just be as happy as you can.
That's it. It's picking those pieces up, isn't it, Billy? It's picking
Yeah.
those pieces up and, whatever the circumstance. I mean, there's always a means of getting help. There's, it's, the whole idea of acknowledging there's an issue.
That's the
Taking it
biggest
on
thing.
board and being willing to talk to somebody, even if sometimes it's better as a stranger. We're scared the effect it's going to have, say, perhaps on a family member. It's having somewhere where in confidence, with a confidence, you can tell the full story. And it's been quite amazing, John. And it's the idea that, again, this is the thing that connects us, Billy. It's everybody has in their life, family members, etc. That, like I said, I mean, if people say they don't have bumps in the road, it's denial.
Straight to
Denial. Plain and simple.
I mean, like I said, I'm 22 and I don't know how to say this. I didn't get arrested, I don't think. But I was living in Northfield, and it was 6 days after I turned 21.
Mm-hmm.
And I got really drunk, and we were living in a apartment complex where it's like your apartment, you have an upstairs, a downstairs, and a garage, and then the other person is next to you. It's by the Norwich Commons. I don't know if you know where that is.
Yes.
It's the apartment it's a giant white building.
Yeah.
And I was living there, and I always used to like to drink. I would, have like 4 or 5 beers, and one time I went up to my grandparents' place for like a family reunion or something like that, and I drank quite a bit, and then I came home and I drank a little bit more, and then I started fighting with my brother and my buddy Christian, actually, the one that I was talking about.
Yes.
And the next day, I got in a fight with my neighbor, actually. And I've got a few scars on, like, my knees and my wrists and stuff like that. But I didn't know that I didn't know, it was mostly like an anger and depression thing.
Oh, sure.
But I didn't know that I needed help. I was like, no, I'm fine, I'll deal with it.
No.
But once you know that you need help, it's the biggest thing and the hardest thing that you can go through.
It is. It is. And it's keeping people close to us that, we can have that confidence where, and it's positive people. It's one of the things we talk about at the gym. If something's cancerous, remove it. If somebody is caustic to your well-being.
And that's the biggest thing to also do. It's something that I only recently really discovered, is the fact that, if I'm dating somebody who drinks more than me, eventually I might just start doing what they're doing.
Out of habit.
Sure.
So it's finding those nicks of, like, if I'm going to be, is this a good fit for me? Is this not a good fit for me?
Yeah.
And even no matter what your age, we all fall short of finding those. It's how we get there and how we move on from that. And my upbringing, I didn't have that. I had two wonderful parents. I had Christmas presents stacked up to, there's no reason why I went my path. Just because it was me. And that's the hardest thing I've had to deal with, accepting that it was all me. I put myself through it. I put my family through some of the worst things that they've ever been through.
And
it's all on me.
That definitely feels a hell of a lot worse than anything that you're feeling.
Pain is pain.
Right.
However you feel it, it's still lowing inside you.
Like, when I was going through that stuff, the one thing that I thought about was how upset I've never seen my mom or dad so upset with, like, they knew that I needed help, and just how upset they were. It made me feel so much worse, because of what they were going through. Which, looking back at it, they didn't need to go through that. Like what you were saying, it is the things that you choose to do.
That's what drove me to continue to do what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know they were in pain, but I didn't want to feel it. So the moment something could go in my body, I'd put it there. I didn't want to feel anything. Did not want to feel emotion at all. Did not care how I had to quiet it. Did not care. And that's, I feel, is like the biggest thing you want to get out here, is the fact that you're feeling some kind of way, find a good way to get it out. I personally kind of like to get hit in the face. It's been a pretty,
You don't hear that too often.
No.
I don't know why, but like when we spar, and my main sparring partner, Mason, will contest to this, that for some reason when we do it, when we spar, everything's just off your chest. It feels like when we get there, our bag is out the door, we come into our dojo, center it, work through everything we got to work through, and leave knowing that once we pick those bags up, we feel like our shoulders can take the abuse anyway. Because you can walk tall with that baggage and work through it.
It's our sanctuary, isn't it? That's what we call it. It's an escape from reality. You come in, you can train as hard as you wish. It's something perhaps selfish. It's a gift we give to ourselves. And I'm JT bobbing, and that's kind of concerning.
Whisper in my ear.
Mm-hmm.
So your fight at the Odd, that was, God, when was that? Probably January?
December 21st.
December
21st, yes. Yep.
I remember the day, not so much the night, mostly because I was concussed.
Yeah.
Didn't remember too much. Something about someone punching me.
I remember watching the fight. The one thing that I could see coming was the overhand right that you were getting hit with. I think it landed probably 2 or 3 times before I looked over at JD and I was like, I don't like that.
6 solid times it landed.
I was like, I don't like that. I don't like it.
And I should not have let it happen. I feel as like I was going into my first one, and like as soon as I landed a knee, a roundhouse, and I'm sitting there going like, oh, and I let off the gas pedal. And once he landed a few of those wild hits, it was just like,
and
I'm gonna keep going with that.
Every time they hit, they were like right above the ear or right on the temple.
Where my left started dripping down.
Yeah, I could see that. So when after that, and I don't have you've obviously been back to training for a while. Have you been working on stepping away from that, or
he'll put a bungee cord around me while I'm going?
It's old school.
Yeah.
And the next step, I would believe that if it keeps happening, is probably a little piece of bamboo to whap me with it. But we'll strap to where it's not moving. It won't drop. It does not allow it to drop because he straps me up to the point.
So it's keeping your left hand
Why I'm training, this is freed up, but it'll be strapped to my head like this so it doesn't move.
Right.
So I'm just, minute after minute, I'm sitting there going like, God, I really just want to let this down, but it just doesn't go there.
Yeah.
So you start realizing like, oh,
it's good.
So,
you're gonna have to keep it up there.
Yeah.
Another old school boxing thing that I know is they would put a basketball or a soccer ball right in between your arm, and you would have to keep it right here while you were.
Billy, I tell from the day you walk in there, and I'm going through the positioning. What I talk to him about is the idea of, if you don't feel those hands on your chin, squeeze your cheeks. And that's your protection. As I said, my job is to keep you safe. And John was the first to admit, I dropped my hands, and I went, yes, you did. Yes, you did, sir. And we're in and out. That's what we're trained to do. We come in when we're intending business, and we're out when we're not intending business. And I think maybe part of John's humanity came out because when he landed that roundhouse, he shuddered his opponent. It was clear. And that's when that wild punch started coming. And guys from the gym, members from the gym, they were like, we're trained to deal with that. I mean, we want somebody throwing erratic punches. That's what we want. We don't want people focused. And I think it shuddered the fella. And John, due to his humanity, and I think the shock in hitting somebody as hard as he did, from the get-go, if you're going in that ring, you've got to finish. They're in to hurt you, and that's part of being the lion, John brought some of the lamb in, but it won't happen again because he wanted a rematch.
Oh, really? With the same dude?
Yeah. And I explained to him, John, that's not going to happen.
Like that night.
That's not going to happen.
Like that night, I'm sitting there going like, couple hours.
Yeah. No.
Couple hours rest. Let's go again.
No, not going to happen, John. And it's the idea. It's amateur fighting. You're not going to get a rematch. It's one thing if it's a title fight. You know this, Billy.
Yeah.
You want to see those. But look, this fella's moving on. Think for him, for an opponent, having beat you, and the prospect of going in then losing to you,
it's tough to deal with.
It is. So John is, because his academic year finishes in March, and April his proper fighter training begins again. And just a shout out to Rex. We're looking at
Rex is a good dude.
Rex is a great dude.
I love Rex.
Coming into your summer event, that's where John would like to be. And it's when the things start blooming again, the hard road work, the sledgehammer on the tires, the partner carry after your run.
Hill sprints.
It gets mean. But with a partner on your back.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. So it's
awesome.
It's Billy. It's hard, but that's But again, I mean, this is for the fighters. This is for the fighters. This is not for regular members. Regular members, if you want to come in and you want to do aerobics, so be it. But
We don't
people
judge, but beyond that.
But people that choose the path like John, like some of the other fighters, it's a very different path they're choosing. And, you know, again, you know, hats off, you know, and especially having carried a lot of the baggage that John has, and then to be able to discard that baggage, as John described, and come in and train hard and leave focused. And when John had said, you know, the voices, I don't hear the voices, it was a very emotional moment, you know.
So where do you go to school?
I'm an apprentice for Benoit Electric, so I go to Barrie for our trade school.
Oh, at Spalding?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, VTC have that. They oversee the apprentice program, the academic side.
Right.
So John's in his third year. So.
Oh.
And, you know, I just went through second year, which is all math and, you know, calculations.
Yeah,
and all that.
trig and algebra. And,
My uncle Andy is a electrician, and he started talking to me a little bit of like the math and shit that you guys have to learn. When I was younger, I always thought like an electrician would just come in and he would put some outlets in your house, and he would run the cords through the roof and come down, and
so much more.
That was it.
I thought the same thing. I thought I was just going in, a couple things added here, and then we get in the second year and he goes, here's some of the formulas. I'm like, see ya.
What the hell's a formula?
I'm going home. I didn't go home. I should have.
But it's tough though. I mean, because it's all algebraic and it's trigonometry, and it's overwhelming.
I can barely say trigonometry.
I'm reading from a card right now, Billy.
Really?
No. But yeah, no. I mean, it's
where does all that
tough
math come in? Like,
a lot of it comes into like length, feet, footage.
Okay.
How far a wire travels, the ampacities of motors, generators. There's a math and equations for almost every little thing, and even from there, it spiders out into a bunch of like even welders. There's so many different ways to go about a welder. Depending on the motor size. You know what I'm saying?
But even
not really.
No,
not really.
There's charts between all that. I mean,
but even bending pipe. It's trigonometry, and you're taking a pipe and you've got to go around X number of obstacles. Mathematically, you can sit down with a formula and knowing, each value, you can figure out based on a series of bends how to do that. But again, it's math. So it's really, and I'm a drummer. I've been a drummer since I was a kid, and that's part of why they have to suffer through so much different music in the gym. But I say to them that life is math, and whether it's music, whether it's everything in and around our life. There's walking is a mathematical equation. Avoiding obstacles, that's math.
And
of course, John could have avoided a few obstacles in the octagon, but we won't go into that.
About 6 of them. About 6 solid obstacles.
Listen to that bell ring. Oh, that's in my head.
First couple were just kind of easy to do, and then that third one was where...
Champion.
Like, oh shit.
Champion. Whoa.
Now I see why he's throwing them.
That was a stinger. Yeah. But no, I mean, hats off to John. I mean, at third year, he's coming to the end of it. He's going to be very focused coming into his summer fight. And, yeah.
Are you going to be on the next coming up card?
No,
I think it's April. No?
No.
Oh, okay.
He's just going to finish out the school year.
This last fight when I was going through school, girlfriends, training, work. A lot of those have been eliminated.
Yeah.
To where it's just training.
Just focusing on it. Yeah. Well, I mean, kind of have to if you're.
It was too much for me to ordeal.
That can't be like the third or fourth thing on your agenda.
No. And I think I feel like that might have had majority. There was a lot of things going on, but it was the main idea was not about, it wasn't winning or losing.
Mm-hmm.
It was to be in an octagon, to put myself out of my comfort zone and to just challenge yourself,
Yeah.
win or lose. I've had my ass beaten plenty of times in my life. One more, it's not going to bring me down. It's not going to disrupt my ongoing day for tomorrow.
Right.
At that night, that was put to rest, and I was back in ready to go for the next day.
Yeah.
It's not something that I'm going to let destroy me.
Right. Well, I
or
mean,
even affect, really. But that's my vision on it.
yeah. So, do you have a opponent picked out for the next fight you have, or not yet?
Not yet, no.
I assume Rex kind of has a little bit of a say.
He's got a whole thing. He knows all that. I even kept telling him, though, I didn't want to know. I didn't want to know.
Really?
The only thing I wanted to know was the style that we were going to go against. I didn't want to know names. I didn't want to know height. I didn't want to know how many he'd been in. I didn't care, and I still don't. When I'm paired up to go with somebody, I'll meet them for the first time in that octagon and go with that. And that is, in my opinion, the most raw form of taking a challenge on.
Very raw. Especially if you don't know how big or small a dude is. You don't know if he's like a lengthy dude or a stocky, short guy with no neck.
Yep.
Just
It is
something you
very
gotta.
raw.
That's the whole point of training to become that, is to step in and to twist your mind to work with at that time in the moment.
Right.
I mean, that's what he's engraved in my head, is in the moment. Most of the time you're in the moment. It's how you react and how you're going to go forward.
Damn, that's actually pretty good. Pretty good little piece of advice.
Well, it just affords you, I think, to be relaxed because we're not distracted. You start to get distracted, and I'll quietly say, in the moment, get in the moment. And, sometimes it reminds me to be in the moment.
Mhm.
So,
This whole path, the way he's gone about it, the old school effect way, was what I needed
Yeah.
to put me where I am now.
Certain people vibe with that and certain people don't, but it's good that you found
It's
the
just
one thing that
finding
you can
something
roll
and
with.
willing to roll with it
yeah.
and not stop. Even at the moments where, there was a few moments when he started kicking it up. Every month he'd start kicking it up more and more, and there was a time where I wanted to quit, and he saw it. We had a heart to heart. More like he's not afraid to stand up to me, going like, but it was just that passion he showed toward me that I didn't want to stop.
Mm-hmm.
And I
No.
won't.
and it's the idea when we had a discussion that I had never seen even the suggestion of I'm going to quit. And John conveyed that at one point. And I said, well, look, you've got to make a very simple choice here. I said, this is not like standard training. You're going to go in, you're going to get hurt if you're distracted, if you doubt yourself. I said, we don't think about winning or losing. We just talk about going in and giving it everything we have. And that's what it's supposed to be about. If you've decided that you're beating your opponent before you walk in there,
It's tough.
it's
It's a tough way to go.
yeah. So John and I had a strong conversation, and I said, so either be a fighter or don't be a fighter. I said, that's entirely your choice. I don't tell you have to do anything. You don't have to fight. You don't have to spar. You don't have to. But don't put the jacket on and decide you're, sometimes
half-ass
going to.
it, yeah.
It doesn't work that way.
Especially in
It's
a
not
sport like
safe
this,
for
you
you.
really can't.
No,
You get
No.
fucked up.
big time.
Yeah.
Big time. Yep.
All right, brother.
Thank you, Billy. Enjoy
Thanks,
that.
Billy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You don't need to thank me.
Guys, we're gonna wrap up here in just a little bit, but what a story, man! What a story!
He's incredible, isn't he? He's incredible.
Real and brave of you to come in here and tell it.
Thanks for having it.
My
It was more
God.
for my soul than anything.
Yeah. So did I hear you say that John will be back in the ring for the summer fight up at the Barry Auditorium?
Yeah, we're going to reach out to Rex. I had mentioned it to Rex in passing, but I had John's academic year comes to an end next month, and so John's fighter training begins again in April. He attends the gym religiously, but the stepped up training, which is stepped down substantially after a fight, we're going to be back at it. And so John, I'm sure in his very quiet voice, is thinking USOB. I know what it entails. And I told him, I said, we're not friends, not for the fighter training.
So what kind of advice do you have for someone like myself when it comes to fighting? So I'm about to go home and fight with my 5-year-old about jammies and teeth brushing and reading the book and going to bed. What kind of tactical
I would suggest bribery.
Okay.
Hang on,
let me write
not
this down here.
chocolate, not candy.
Okay.
Having a grown-up daughter now, but remembering when she was young, don't do the candy thing. Wait, don't do it. It's your surviving, sir.
I'll tell you, it's one of the most vicious fights that I do every night.
Yeah, the crying's terrible. I'm sure you kind of get fed up crying, don't you?
I lose all the
I was
time.
going to say, yes.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And Billy, amazing guy, isn't he?
Incredible.
Isn't he incredible?
Incredible. It was great talking with him.
He is going to be a dad very, very soon.
Oh, wonderful.
And
wonderful.
I'm telling you, man.
Congratulations, Billy. That's fantastic.
You
Absolutely.
you talk about somebody who has absolutely no idea what he is headed into. I mean, he's driving 1,000,000 miles an hour right for a brick wall. He has no clue what's coming down.
Yes,
No clue.
It does get better, Billy, generally when they get in their 20s.
I gotta say, that seemed a lot scarier than stepping in a ring.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
To me, it
oh
seems like
yes.
that's a little bit scarier than stepping in a ring, man.
Yeah.
Dude, I'll tell you, man, I cannot wait for you to step back in the ring. And I got to say, and I'm going to say it again, the fact that you didn't literally, figuratively hang up the gloves that night, but you got back into the gym.
Yes.
And you know, and you do know that you've probably seen fighters that go into this with the mindset of either I'm going to win or I'm not going to do this.
JD, I come back to, and I've shared with the folks at the gym. It's one of the funniest things, and it cracks me up every time I see it pop up, whether it's Facebook or otherwise. But it's Mike Tyson, and the idea that everybody has a plan until you get punched in the face, and there's a great truth to that, and that's life. That's life.
Yeah, it
You
is.
think you've got everything figured out, and then
Get
not
punched
so
in
much.
the face.
Sure.
Yeah.
But John came back with a fury, and so I think we're going to see a much more focused John. Now the glitter of the shiny keys, he's been beyond it. He got that first one over with, and that's the thing.
What did you say to him afterwards?
I listened to John. I didn't have really anything to say. John was concerned that he let me down. I'm like, John, how could you? I said, the idea that you walked in there in the first place. I said, you could never let me down.
That's right.
I was more concerned about letting him down, and then he
And-
said
and
I
it was-
couldn't let you down. You did it phenomenal, and then his wife brought me my first beer, and
Yep.
it
The
was
fact
fantastic.
that the fact that you got into that ring,
Yes.
you let him up.
Yeah.
You didn't
mean,
let him down.
No, I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah.
As we've said. I
And
mean,
you
walking-
know what kind of nerves it
Sure.
takes to
Sure.
do what he
Yes.
did. He knows.
Yeah.
He knows what it felt like for you for your first fight to do that. I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
I mean, I cannot
Yeah.
imagine.
No, and that's the thing. I mean, it's fear is healthy. You
Yeah,
have
man.
to have fear walking in there. John and I have talked about it quite often.
Sure.
If you have no fear,
Yeah.
there is something wrong with you.
Sure.
You have to have fear.
So how do folks get in touch with your boxing club?
Well, certainly give me a call. We're on Facebook.
Yeah.
You can certainly give me a call.
Yeah.
Of course, it's within Vermont. It's 802-505-0790. Find Green Oak Boxing on Facebook.
Yeah.
We'd love to hear from you. Public's always welcome.
Come check it out. See what it's about.
Check it out. It's different. It's not. Generally, we envision based on film and television shows what a boxing club, what a martial arts club's like, and quite often when you walk in, it's not as you expect it.
Sure. I think the final thing that I think I want to say is that we all, me, you, Billy, John, I think we've all learned tonight that the biggest fight that you have been fighting is life.
Yes.
More so than another opponent, but you've had one hell of a fight, and that's the biggest one probably that you're ever going to be ever going to be in the ring with. Is day to day, and year to year.
Yes.
And getting in the ring and putting on gloves, that's way secondary to
big time
to life. You've already had one vicious fight, and in my eyes, man, you've already won.
Yep.
Hang in there, brother. Buckle up.
For sure.
You know there's going to be rough times
I
ahead.
never unbuckle myself.
Listen, you I've had, my dad has told me, successful people stay close and associate themselves and hang around with successful people. So stay very close to this dude.
Oh.
Even when things are not going well, even when you're afraid you're letting him down or what have you, stay close to this guy, because I said that to you that night.
Mm-hmm.
And I told you I intended to.
Yeah, you remember me saying that.
I certainly do.
Yeah.
I certainly do. And
He's a great human being, man.
You're too kind, but it's the, I mean, this is the thing. I mean, everybody has their battles that they go through. John has just had a war.
Sure.
John's had a war.
Right.
And
That's right.
like you said, the fight is small potatoes compared to life.
Yeah.
And that's the same, I think, for all of us.
Absolutely.
To, lesser or to a greater degree. But, once again, hats off to John. JD, you've been a wonderful host.
Sure.
And thank you for...
Thanks to Billy.
Yeah, for sure.
Billy's, I love Billy. He's a great guy. Thank you guys so much for coming in.
No problem. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for watching tonight. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please, again, post your comments, share the link, like the video tonight, like the podcast, and just stay in touch with us. We'll catch you next time. Thanks to my presenting sponsors, and they are wonderful. Wright Electric, Chris Wright, love the guy to pieces. One of these days, he's going to sit down with me again here on the show, and I can't wait. Jason Gauthier's Quality Grounds and Maintenance. He's like a maniac plowing right now. He's a very, very busy guy, and he's getting ready for this storm coming up. And Trash King Trash Service, which he just started up not too long ago, has taken off, so he says, which I'm so happy for him. Nice. And Project Independence. They were just on the show a few nights ago. You talk about an incredible organization right here in our backyard, Main Street, Barrie. They're wonderful, and I can't wait to have them back on. And I'll be down there broadcasting live on the 27th. It's a Friday with Dave Keller down at Project Independence, Main Street, Barrie. Thanks, Billy. Thanks to Abubakar, Tony Campos, Central Vermont Television, and thank you so much again for checking out the show tonight. We'll catch you next time. God bless.